Here we are again, and again, and again, and again. Always and ever presence, awareness. And that's how they describe it in some of the texts. The great perfection is non-conceptual awareness. Awareness without any concepts. And what are concepts? Thoughts, ideas, images, words. And that's the problem. Words can be very useful, but they can be very self-destructive also. And we take the words to be real. But Hinduism, for instance, they call it Sat Chit Ananda, Nama Rupa. They're the five factors. Sat is existence. Chit is consciousness. Ananda is loving to be. So, anyone who's not existing right now, anyone who's not conscious or unaware, the same thing to, there's a little bit difference between consciousness and awareness, but anybody who's not unaware right now, and you know you're not unaware, so you must be aware. And you're happy to be right now. So you always and ever are that Sat Chit Ananda. And the Nama Rupa, the name and form, is the body-mind. The Nama is the name and the Rupa is the form. And they tell us, Nama Rupa are Maya. They're illusory. And that's what needs to happen. See the illusoriness of the illusion. It's all illusory. Anyone who is unaware, no, you realise you're not unaware. So you must be aware. Now, do you know what awareness is? Well, no, I don't. Apart from being, recognising it as the life essence itself. Life, awareness is that life essence, or pure being, pure knowing, and pure loving to be. And that's what they tell us in the scriptures. Loving to be. Anyone who doesn't love to be. And don't they say in the text also that God is love? We think love's something separate. We say we're looking for love. But God is love, and love must be God, if you're not God. And all there is love. That's one of the Beatles songs, wasn't it? All there is love. And that's all there is. It's love or life. Life is love, love is life. It's love or life expressing, patterning, shaping, forming, and expressing as everything. And you must and only can be that, which we know innately. I am that. That's the tree, that's the flower, that's the bird. We put labels or words on everything. All appearing on that basic screen, which is awareness or wakefulness or aliveness. Now, it seemingly gets obscured by thoughts, feelings, emotions. The personal, what we take to believe to be the person, the separate entity, the individual. Not really, the person comes from the word persona, the mask, meaning the mask from an ancient language. So we've got this mask of words or concepts. Tells you in the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God. The Word was God. That's all that God is the Word. All things were made by Him, by the Word. There was nothing made that was made without the Word. And have a look at our life. We've got labels or words on everything. All these things. Seemingly things. Only seemingly things. You and I are things. We don't take it from that point. We think we are something static, solid, substantial, and real. The tree's a thing, the flower's a thing, the bird is a thing, the insects are things. Everything is things. Basing on that screen of awareness. Silence, the stillness, the emptiness. That's what trying to describe awareness. You can use those terms. But the awareness is the basic awareness is always and ever there. Like no matter how many clouds you put over the sun, can you say the sun has ever left the sky using that analogy? You can't. So, but we can lose sight of the sun with all the clouds obscuring it, but underneath you've already know the truth about it. You've investigated and seen and know for certain the sun doesn't leave the sky. And that when the sun is not seen but obscured by the cloud, or the earth rolls around the sun, and this side where we are today over here, it's light because the sun, it's facing the sun, and then even how heavy the clouds are, the sun still, the light of that sun seems to shine through them, and we see that, recognise the light of day. When it rolls around the other way, it's darkness. You can't recognise the light, the sun, because the earth has turned away from it. And it's darkness, but you still know that the light of the sun is still there. And you still know whatever's going on in this mind, that light of awareness. Awareness is like the light, the self-shining, ever fresh. Presence awareness, they tell you that. Self-shining. It's shining like the sun is shining. And it's ever fresh, it's spontaneous, it's never changed. Yet it's ever changing but never changing. Like the ocean. Ever fresh. Presence. And it's here in this immediacy. It's even cancelled out time, past and future, into presence awareness. That basic sun. And isn't the sun shining right here, right now? It's ever present too. It's timeless as far as that's concerned. Even whether you're facing towards it or not, the sun hasn't changed. Or it is using that analogy, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about this present awareness that is the life that it is shining through you as you. Shines through in every pattern, shape and form and everything. It's shining through those things as those things. Yeah. But it's still only that self-shining, ever-fresh presence awareness. So what I've been doing all these years, even when we start on the so-called spiritual search, we're not satisfied with the way things are. We're trying to find this awareness. We hear it's awareness, we're trying to find awareness. Stupid, isn't it? Yeah. When you realise you're already that, trying to find something that you already are, might be obscured by thoughts, concepts, ideas, but realise those thoughts, concepts and ideas are expressions of that awareness. Yeah. So if you can't see through them, just like the clouds are, again, the formation of the sun. The sun doesn't know anything about the clouds. But the natural functioning of the sun evaporates water, which forms the clouds, which seemingly obscure it. That natural functioning of this awareness, this intelligence in it that you are, forms ideas, concepts, words, things, and looks around and seeing all these things which we put labels on and giving the word on them and seemingly make them real with the word. But forever present awareness, self-shining and ever fresh. Realise that it's not something you're going to get at some future time. And you must realise that now if you've been searching for some time and haven't found it. Why haven't you? Why haven't you found? You've looked into many things and understood many of the so-called things and recognised them, but this answer to life or beingness or whatever you like to call it, you've never found it. Yeah. Why? You're trying to find yourself, not the personal self, which you take and believe we are. You're trying to find the Atman, the oneself that they talk about. You can't find it because you are it. It is the one, and only one, and always and ever the one, and always and ever has been. Start to get the sense of that if you don't see it right now. If you're too locked into the conceptual ideas and images, which we are seemingly locked into because we reinforce them day in, day out for years. And they become overwhelming. And it might just dawn on you what is already there. Just when the the earth's rolled away from the sun, it's seemingly darkness. But the earth keeps rolling around, and what happens? The obscurity disappears, and the sun comes over the horizon. The light, it dawns on you, just like that light comes over the horizon, the dawning of day. The light comes on and dawns you. Well, I'm already that. I'm already that presence awareness. Always have been and always will be. And it is immediate, right here and now. All the search, I couldn't find the way out of the so-called thing called mind when I searched, and when you look at that, because what are you trying to fight it with? You're trying to fight it with this thing we call mind that we picked up along the way. So how can a mind find mind? Because the very idea of finding, looking for it with the mind, is keeping it there, keeping you there in the mind. And when you investigate and see the mind is appearing on it, just like everything else is appearing as it, or as the isness of it, or however you explain that. But it's the one essence, patterning, shaping, forming, appearing and expressing as everything, and you are that. So what is there to do? You do as I say. Rest. Let it rest in its uncontrived singularity. It is that singularity, the one essence, the absolute, the great perfection, the one essence. So to step outside that one essence, to try to grasp it from the outside and get back into it, see, you're starting from a false point, a point that doesn't exist. To get to the truth, you'll never get there. And that's why we never find the answer in the mind. And they tell you that. The answer is when the mind is not. They'll say you'll never ever get peace of mind. Because that's why you won't get peace of mind, because there is no such thing as this thing called mind. And that mind, so what we believe to be mind, will never be at peace, because its nature is to vibrate, and it's always vibrating in words, concepts, ideas, images, thoughts, feelings, emotions, providing us all those things all the time. And never still for a second. Now on the search, but it might dawn on you, every direction you look at will always be in the mind. And you need to ask, well, if they say it's pride of mind, it's thoughts free, ever fresh, presence awareness, no mind, or as I tell you in some of the things in Buddhism, it's the unborn Buddha mind, pure mind in other words, pure awareness. And when they say that unborn mind, there's no concepts, and they call it no mind. It's pure mind, but there's no concepts, it's non-discriminating mind. And that pure mind is pure awareness. Still that pure awareness with thoughts, feelings, emotions and everything appear on, the world and everything in the world, and all the concepts and all the galaxies appear on that pure, unborn, pure mind, or innate, what I call intelligence energy. And intelligence I'm talking about is not your intellects. Have a look in nature. Nature, the answer is in the nature of things. The natural state. That's what nature means, natural. In the natural state. And what is a natural state? It means there's no trying, there's no becoming, it's just there, naturally there of itself, as itself, in itself. Yeah. Always, never so. So when I'm talking about your intelligence, it's not your intellects. Have a look in that nature and see how nature is functioning. It's not thinking I'm going to form a star or a galaxy, or the earth, or the sea, like that. But the innate intelligence, patterns, shapes and forms, so it's vibrating through the energy of vibration and movement. Vibrates all these different patterns, shapes and forms, which is a phenomenal manifestation. It's all phenomena, and the definition of phenomena is that which appears to be. An appearance is illusory. And it's an illusory illusion. See that? There's no shape or form or pattern to it anywhere at all. But you can't say it is not. It is. And that's what they say. See everything as is. As is means unaltered, unmodified, uncorrected. No preference, no partiality, no comparison. Without trying to alter it, modify it, change it with the word, it's working itself out. There's nothing out there in nature that's saying, I am the word, I'm going to change this or change that. It's functioning naturally, spontaneously and effortlessly. It's only in that pattern, shapes and forms that they form these human patterns, the same as it's formed everything else. And we have the mind and the brain and the things to think and function. And it's we that have taken ourselves to be the persona, and which we call myself. So you're competing with that thing, if you like to use that term, we call God, which is the oneself, the Atman. It's myself. No wonder we get into trouble. And so we made these little personas, these little masks, these little human patterns as myself. We think it is the same as the one self that's patterning, shaping, forming and everything. Now look at you as this thing. Take yourself as a thing appearing in that awareness or on that awareness, whichever way you like to put it. And compare it. When I say leave it as it is, don't compare. When you compare it, what are you? Your size against this manifestation. Your size is less than a grain of sand compare it to the universe as it is, in comparison to that. Now you think this little grain of sand is going to change the earth, change the way? It's impossible. So the earth, no doubt, is functioning as it should. The world, as we know it, or the earth, is functioning as it should. And realise that there have been ice ages before this, global warming before it, tsunamis, plagues, viruses, things like that wiped out this patterns and that, things like that. Before we had any, say, or believed we had any power in it, we're using, the atomic energy and that we're using now, and it can get out of hand. It was there. We didn't invent that or make that. We think we can make it and alter it and change it. And what do? We blow up places like Chernobyl and this place in Japan where it's destroyed, and where we've exploded atom bombs and things like that. And we wouldn't be able to do that without that life essence functioning through us and things. So it's part of the functioning also. And it goes along. Now the great way, as they call it, is not difficult. We think it is. We've been trying to get it for years. For those who have no preferences. It's not difficult if we've got no preference. We're seeing it as it is, leaving it as it is, unaltered, unmodified, uncorrected. It's not difficult. When love and hate are both absent, when these words and concepts are just say love and hate because they can't put all the words together, but the way the mind functions and the way the thinking functions is always dualistic in the pairs of opposites, good, bad, pleasant, painful, loving, hating. It's not just loving, hating, far and near, high and low. It's not difficult. Those who have no preferences, but we got this. We're dividing it up into concepts, the one essence, and preferring one over the other. We want the good over the bad. We want the pleasant over the painful. We want the happiness over the sadness. And we're making it difficult instead of leaving it as it is, unaltered, unmodified, uncorrected. And again, going back to the earth, it's rolling around the sun. What do we have to do about it? Do we have to turn our handle somewhere to roll it around or press a button? Or is it happening naturally and effortlessly by itself? So everything is functioning right as it should. So there's some questions there, I think. I'm verbal on enough. Have we got Kat to say something, if you like, or put the questions up and let's go.
Yes, so there is a question from Armanath. Dear Bob, can you explain ocean does not know the wave equals self does not know body-mind complex? That's from Nisargadatta.
Yeah, no. What is a wave? It's just a movement of energy going through the ocean.
Yes.
And it breaks the stillness of the ocean up into ripples. A ripple, a bit stronger, becomes a wave. And a wave gets a bit stronger again, that more energy going through it can make a tsunami. But it's just a vibration or a movement. And what's vibrating in it? Life energy or intelligence energy. There's nothing out there vibrating it or moving it. It's just like there's a magnetic pull somewhere in the ocean. It vibrates everything. And life itself, we call that. And it happens, all happening by itself. We divide it up and think there's doers and becoming and all the rest of it. But it's just a natural, spontaneous functioning. But yet, in reality, no thing has ever happened. Because it's all things. Ocean is a thing, the sky and the space are things. No thing ever happened. And it's all spontaneously vibrating, appearing as though. Spontaneously. No time. No space.
Yes, so there is another from Armanath. aim of persona creation, was it to dissolve it simultaneously, like a dream renewal happens spontaneously and instantaneously?
Say that again.
I think that's just a sharing. Aim of persona creation is to dissolve the simultaneously, like a dream renewal happens spontaneously and instantaneously.
Well, in its actuality, in its reality, it can't know itself, isn't it? Unless pattern shapes and forms appear, unless through that awareness, the pure intelligence, a vibration comes up as a thought, feeling or emotion or a word, as it says in the Bible, in the beginning was the Word. There was no beginning to it. It was still in a spontaneous, non-dual, one essence. But it vibrated into words. We learnt what we call learnt words. In the beginning was the Word was God. The God, that's all that God is, a so-called higher power or greater power, the actual absolute, is a word. And all things were made by the Word.
Yes.
Nothing made that was made without the Word. If we put these words in, that's how we divide it up. But out there, is the tree dividing anything up? Or is it just being a tree? Is the flower, or is the sky, or a space?
Yes.
It's all divided up by words. It's a way it expresses through those patterns, and it didn't form these human pattern to express through, which is nothing but that pure awareness, patterning, shaping and forming. You know, it would still be in its absoluteness, which it is anyway, but you couldn't say anything about it or anything be done about it. There'd be no.
Yes. That is from Dino. Can word therapy change life's trajectory? In other words, if life is uncontrived singularity, deterministic and spontaneous, is there a place for modern psychology in opening one up to awareness?
Well, we've got so locked into the persona, into the mask, to break us out of that to happen to a certain extent, we need the words. The word is the cause, but to a certain extent the word can be a cure. It can quieten the mind a little bit through the psychology, but help us to make the mind more one-pointed if we're focusing on something a little bit, to get out of it.
Yes.
So it's all part of the functioning also. And we couldn't express anything without the word. So the word can be very useful, but it's also very self-destructive. Realise that when it's a vibration, it vibrates in the opposite. So when we start to recognise, that is, and the recognising can happen, psychology and psychiatry and those sort of things can help in that. Mantras and things like that might help in that, but they're not going to take you right home.
Yeah.
Home is when you go beyond the word.
Can I add to this one? It's just to reword the same thing as you said. Hi everyone. I love that question, because this is the question that Bob often answers. Is valid in the appearance. Everything that shows up in the appearance is valid, including word therapy, psychology. But can that help the one to reach the awareness? No, because the one that reaches the awareness is the obscuration for the awareness to shine forth. So in the dream, in the appearance, if life takes you to the practice, meditation, mantra, psychology, that's where life takes you, and that's the you that is being taken. But the awareness, the consciousness shining through, it shines through the me, beyond the me. So from the me perspective, it is all perfect. The way life guides you, even through the suffering, is perfect. There is a greater perfection for the little character in the story. But for the consciousness, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter if that consciousness shines through and put aside the dirty mind or the pure mind or crazy mind or awake, or whichever the mind is, whatever is the content of the mind. It does not really matter for consciousness. It means that the consciousness does not have a prerequisite. It doesn't need 20 years of therapy, or doesn't need practices because it is already awake. It's just veiled. So for the seeming seeker on the journey, every little bit helps. And the word therapy can change your life. Yesterday's meal can change your life. Everything is actually changing trajectory of life. The weather today, the memory that pops up in the morning, all of it changes the trajectory because life is spontaneous. It's not determined in any way. It unfolds moment to moment, depends on the prior moment, which contains all feelings, thoughts, emotions, past experiences, all of it. That determines trajectory. But it is totally valid question, and it's beautiful because it opens up the two perspectives, the individual perspective, which it can elevate anything, can elevate the suffering and make it easier, clean that mirror, as they say in Zen, and the consciousness perspective, in which no matter what the individual doer does, makes no difference for the consciousness, because consciousness is not asleep, it's already there. I'll get back to the questions. I think we have a couple of questions from Tanya. She says, I have a couple of questions. How do you rest or abide as awareness? Does it matter if lots of thoughts still appear? I see them as just story, mostly, and see that awareness is not saying anything, just thought comments spontaneously. I cannot find a separate illusory me, but although it is a lot quieter here, often there is a lot of narration. Thank you.
Yes, and always words will come up, but what they're appearing on the basic screen, which they call that awareness, the movies can appear on the screen,
Yes.
but if they ever contaminated or corrupted the screen,
No.
and when get the glimpse of this and look through it, it doesn't matter what thoughts, feelings and emotion are going on, they know the truth. That's the difference. You've recognised and seen the truth, that you're prior to thought, you're prior to the word, and see that. If you ask yourself what's wrong with right now, if you don't think about it and look beyond that to see what is wrong without a thought, without thinking any thought, you realise you're still breathing, heart's still beating, hair and fingernails are still growing, the functioning's still going on, but word has ceased for a moment. When you go to sleep at night, where is the word? But if you stop breathing, heart stop beating, no, the functioning's going on without the word. And you realise that you are, whether you realise it or not, anyway, you still are prior to thought.
Yes.
Always and ever. And the thought can become useful then, which it can be. But the way it is then, when we're believing in it to the extent we do, it vibrates in the opposite, and it becomes self-destructive. Because it's that same words or self, the believed in myself, that causes the fear, the anxiety, the shame, the remorse, the psychological suffering that we're trying to get out of. So you see, the word that puts you into it, to a certain extent, it makes you look beyond it and get you out of it. But then it can only go so far.
Yes, John David. I waited eagerly for 15 minutes last night for the meeting to start when it dawned on me that I got my days turned around. Had a good laugh at the mind's blunder and became happy.
Good. Why not?
Yes. Armanath says, beautiful, Bob, thanks. Nothing ever happened. No beginning or end.
Yes.
And Rohan adds to it, past and future stance holding the present while occurring. They too are actually the present. The present is the only one. Not knowing the reality of now, trying to know the past or future, is trying to count without one. This is Ramana Maharshi. And Caroline says she loves that home beyond the word. Chris, difficulty with current psychology is it's often orientation on fixing, on making stronger a self which is essentially non-existent.
Yeah,
Mm.
good.
Yeah, beautiful. And Amarnath, dear Bob, can you explain, until death is seen nearer, now seen is very difficult to get self-realization. That is from Ramana Maharshi.
What was that again? Seeing?
Unless and until death is seen nearer and now seen, it's very difficult to get self-realization.
Seeing,
Yeah, I think it is. If you see the death close to you, you can't. If you can't see the death close to you, then you can't realize self. I'm not sure.
yeah. There is no such thing as death.
Yeah.
The pattern body-mind pattern breaks down.
Mm-hmm.
And in the breaking down of it too, it's integration is stopped, disintegration starts, and that disintegration forms enzymes or maggots or worms that'll devour the pattern, the shape and form of the body, or it'll get eaten by something like that. Out of life, more life comes. There is only life, but there's no body or no thing that lives a life.
Mm-hmm.
Everything expressing as that life. And life is love, the love of being. And we separate these words and think that we've got to find a thing called love, and love's a certain thing, like we've got to become love. But acknowledge it what it is that life. So you love to be, basically, and everything else loves to be.
Yes.
It wouldn't defend itself, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so I can actually add to it, because that's a great opportunity to actually demonstrate how much good does it if you listen to all sorts of different pointing. One using death, one using no death. Now, was Ramana Maharshi right and Bob's wrong, or the other way around? No. This is just words.
Yeah, no,
Using words is... that's why sometimes digging the well in 10 different places and learning 10 different vocabularies is very entertaining for the mind, but doesn't really take you beyond it, because they probably pointing to the same thing, using different pointers, different fingers.
Yeah. Not only is the same Ramana Maharshi's right, of course he is, but so is the ones asking the question here. They're right too.
Yeah.
Everything.
Everybody's right in their own perspective, in their own viewpoint. But here the pointer that unless you see death, and then Bob says there is no death. What did he mean? Well, we got to ask him. And I guess I do actually have certain little personal preference to using that analogy or metaphor of death, because I find it quite sweet. I was talking to Julia last night about all the skeletons for the 1st of November that she's got around the houses. It is a great reminder. The mortality, the impermanence is a great reminder to detach from everything that is passing, moving. So remembering that whatever you are seeing or understanding is impermanent, is ending as it begins. You can call it death, but of course there's no death, it's just change.
Pattern, shapes and forms change, constantly changing.
Yeah.
Like the waves on talking about the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
Waves form on the ocean. They go back into the ocean. Yeah?
That's right, yeah. And Armanath is clearing up here that death means end of dream here. Okay, yeah, so you answer your own question. Unless you see, because the question was unless you see the dream, the death, you can't, it is very difficult to get self-realization. I would pick out on the words also that is very difficult to get self-realization. First of all, self-realization is not something that someone gets. It's not being got. It's not... and also, it is not a thing.
Well, it's realised self is Atman. It's always realised.
Yes.
But when the personal self, when we take it to be myself,
Mm.
that's been the cause where probably we've separated ourselves from the totality.
Yes.
And that sense of separation is dualism.
Mm.
Realise there's no person, no personal self. It's not myself at all. It's the one Atman.
I would also pick on, that's again, it's just for the clarity, on the idea that it is very difficult. For the mind, it is not difficult, it is impossible. It can't be realized. And whether you see the death or the dream, or you don't see the death or the dream, if there is a you seeing it, realization is impossible. The seeing and understanding happens without the agency in between. So it is either impossible or certain. When you see without the agency, it's not that you can be half pregnant, or it's not that it's difficult. It's either impossible or is certain. Certain from the without the filter, seeing with the naked awareness, clear
See,
seeing.
all that death, life,
Mm.
difficult, easy, all words.
Yes.
And it tells you that in the Dancing Men again. Goes to the finish of it. He says the way is beyond language.
Mm.
It's beyond the words. For instance, there's no yesterday, no tomorrow, no today. Not only in just meaning that, there's no words whatsoever, just as it is. And Lao Tse, I think, in that Chinese one, what do they call it? Chinese teaching.
The
Taoism.
Taoism. Yeah.
They say the way that can be spoken about is not the way.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I just add on it, I never studied Ramana Maharshi, and I'm absolutely certain he's got such an impact on the world that everything he says is well in the consistency within the language, and is spot on, and is direct, and is helpful. The thing is, because we're using different vocabulary, it is hard to transition. Like, we don't use that as difficult or as trying or as one is seeing the self. Within his vocabulary, I'm sure it is impeccable. I'm sure it's beautiful and to the point. That's why if someone resonates with that vocabulary and it doesn't raise the red flag when we're talking about trying or about seeing death or about something being difficult, that is probably the language, the resonance appropriate and correct for them. And I wouldn't want to kind of take them off the track and tell, look, that's not right. But because we're speaking Bob's language here, that's why I'm kind of using it as an really just to demonstrate that sometimes the truth is always beyond the language. But within the language, it can seem contradictory. It can seem like we are self-contradicting. And of course we are, because the truth is beyond the language.
Yes. As you say, he's very good, but he tells people to read the Raibu Gita.
Yeah.
He says that's what points people to do, and that starts off, there is no creator, no creation, and no creature. Tells you right?
Yeah, that's Ramana's recommendation. Yeah, that's the only thing actually I read that in the beginning of Raibu Gita. Rohan says, it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Bob has said that this means we die to the sense of separation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was St. Paul or someone
Yeah.
dying daily.
Yeah, St. Paul says, I die daily. St. Francis says, make me an interest of peace, where there's hatred let me sow love, blah, blah, blah. He goes down through all the opposites. He says, it was only by dying I can have eternal life.
Yes.
Not talking about carking it physically, talking dying to that sense of self.
Yeah.
And so St. Paul, when it says I die daily, he wasn't carking it every day. But he's dying to that sense of self. And the believed impersonal self. It's a fiction.
Yes. Yes, that's Amarnath is actually bringing it up again. Birth and death are to the I am the body idea, ego, thought. Nisargadatta and Ramana. Yeah, that's a metaphor, really. When we see there is no death, we use that word as a metaphor. When they say everything's dying, right, when it begins, then it ends. That's metaphor. Dana, I came before gods, they know me not. Beautiful. Amarnath, thanks Bob and Kat for showing me, as I am ever totally naked awareness beyond the concept of self-realization. It's just a concept or word because everyone is always self or realized only.
And so are you, and don't forget it.
Yes. Yeah, that's... You go.
Go on. As I say, all those questions will disappear, or should have disappeared by now anyway. She knows that. Is it she or he?
It's he. Yeah. Yeah, that's when Bob was saying about... I found it really sweet when you say about the search and trying to find out what is awareness, or what am I? Oh God, I'm lost. I gotta find myself. Okay, I'm trying to find myself. It's just such a popular romantic statement. People go for the retreats. Oh, I need to find myself. It's a metaphor again. It's just showing up the confusion, which is the opening, the readiness for a change. And then trying to find yourself. Where are you go about to find yourself? Oh, of course within. But within what? Within the body? Nah. You know, there's just guts there, blood and skin, bones. No. So within the mind? Okay, so what's the mind? That's just a lot of thoughts and images and stories. So you want to find yourself within that mental noise? No. So where do we go about finding the self or ourselves? The only way the life finds itself is through the reflection. Yeah. It reflects itself in everything else. So you find yourself, look around, that's a self reflecting in the world, reflecting in that 3D or 4D mirror.
Look around, it's myself that we believe. The separate self's the problem. So if I'm trying to find myself and can't find it, and I'm still self-aware,
yes,
well, I must be the Atman self, the one self, the absolute self.
And also, instead of it's like the popular in the modern spirituality idea is the here now. So you have this 12-step program. May I find the God now? May I find the presence now? Now is one thing, but the here, I like the here. The here, okay, I'm finding myself. Where about am I going to find myself? Well, where am I? Here. Okay, so I'm starting here. So the I am, the sense of existence, the presence is here. I don't need to go inside the body and the guts. I don't need to go inside the stories. I am already here. In that here, that presence is inevitable. Not in the thinking, not in the physical forms or element. But that here-ness is undeniable. You can't stop being here. Can't go anywhere else.
Nowhere.
Nowhere, now here.
Yeah, take the W off the where and put it on there. No, we've got now here.
Yes.
Now here is nowhere.
So find yourself here. You're already here. It's nothing to look for. The here-ness is there. And Jane says, I read Raibu every night. It is beautiful. Thanks, Julia, for the beautiful little booklet full of truth. Cool. Yeah, the idea of finding oneself also starts from the idea of losing oneself. And what is it there that was lost? What is it there that was forgotten? What is it that somehow we lost sight of? And we traded for the excitement of the mind, for the stories, for the conceptual images, dramas. So to find the self, the here-ness, the beingness, find what was always there, what was there when you were in the womb, what is there when you are in a deep sleep, what is there when you were a baby. It is still there. That doesn't need to be found. It needs to be recognized.
Mm.
It hasn't been lost. If it was lost, the body would turn to corpse. So it hasn't been. It's just been obscured by the things that seem to be more exciting. The dramas, the personal story, the me, my relationships with my work, with my health, with my whatever always the my and the me and the drama that comes out of it. That's selfishness, self-centeredness, self-obsession, which is sweet if you see it impersonally, if you see it as a tendency, because every creature, as Bob mentioned, it has this survival mechanism. It wants to be, it loves to be. So that loving to be is expressed in humans in the same way as in every other animals, by finding food, shelter, wanting safety, security. That's beautiful. That's loving to be. But on top of that loving to be, we've got another faculty here. We have the reasoning capacity. And that reasoning capacity is largely overused and abused to narrate on that self-interest and that survival instinct. And now we have hundreds, if not thousands, of images and stories about me not being treated the way I should, or not having the goods the way I want, or generally living in a sense of dissatisfaction and in the war with the reality, because I think that I deserve better, or perhaps I think I've deserved worse, and that's the other side of the same coin, and self-hatred and self-pity, and always that sense of disagreement with what is, lack of appreciation for what is, not seeing the world as the miracle, not seeing the self as the miracle, but always wanting what is not.
Never wanting what is God.
Mm. And that is the reasoning capacity used in an inappropriate way. That is a mind being a master instead of being a slave. Because when you recognize yourself as that living principle, as that life, that presence, mind is a wonderful tool.
Yeah. That's the Mahaveka, I am that.
Mm.
That is. That is, and then we put another label on it, that is me, is you, or something like that. But it's just pure isness.
Yeah.
Isness is not wasness.
Mm.
It's not what will be-ness, it just is. Immediacy. Right here, right now, it is.
Yeah. It's not inside or outside.
No, there's no inside or outside. There's no static point.
Mm. And Rohan says, the problem is that we carve off part of what is sensed as me. That is the cause of our suffering. If I am the totality, then how will a me ever know it?
Mm.
That's so true. How can awareness find itself? It is itself. It is, yeah. And why would it want to find itself if not for the crazy mad idea that it lost itself and it needs to find itself? Like how the idea of looking for oneself. Megan, thank you for saying there is no time required also and nothing to look for. Yeah. And Amarnath, Bob and Kat, ever grateful for you, for your infinite grace and blessings, plus compassion which is beyond the words. That's a beautiful reflection, you see.
Mm.
Thank you. Never wanting what is God. Thanks, Bob. God, this was a little anonymous poem that Bob sometimes recites. You have a nice twist of it, because you say never wanting what is God. That's right. That's a good twist. But originally it is never wanting what he's got. Like how was the whole thing? As a rule, a man is fool.
A man's a fool
When it's hot, he wants
What's
it cool.
When it's cool, he wants it hot. Always wanting what is
Well, it's not.
Never
Never-
wanting what he's got.
Yeah, it means always wanting something else.
Mm.
But it's nice to actually have a twist on it, never wanting what is God, what God is, because that's that's something that we don't want. We always want something for me. What's that book, Jane? Dale Allison is asking. I guess Jane is gonna reply. Raibu Gita. You can download it for free. I guess. Amarnath says, beautiful. There is no need of time, place, and person, mind. And Rohan, if we live from what is given in all obviousness, we will find blessing heaped upon blessing. That's from Douglas Harding.
Mm.
And nothing to add, says Dale Allison. And Chris says, a Sufi saying, I was a hidden treasure and I love to be known. Ibn Arabi. Yeah?
What was it?
I was hidden treasure and I love to be known.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's gosh, the love for the truth is the most natural thing. That's why they call it bliss of being, the love for the truth, knowing that, seeing that infinite brilliance of that manifestation and the source beyond that manifestation. That's nicely said. I love to be known. Beautiful. And every moment when every one of you or everyone generally has a glimpse of that brilliance, of that miraculousness, that's the moment of bliss. That's it for now with questions. I'll go back and see how
Some good questions there.
Yeah, beautiful questions and sharing.
Good understanding too.
Great understanding, yes. And I like even those that bring up, this is always brilliance of life, working beyond everything, that brings up certain clarifications. Even the mismatching of the words or twisting always works out in a way that can produce the shift if... No, it doesn't take me any further.
Have you all noticed that the awareness is still there? That hasn't changed.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be looked for. It can't be found, because to find the awareness you will have to be something else than awareness, and you're not. And also to even endeavor looking for something, you have to make it to a thing. So to find awareness or to find the enlightenment or to find anything, you already separate yourself from it and put it aside, and that can't be done.
All you need to do is ask yourself a simple question: am I unaware right now? I'm not unaware right now, are you?
Nope.
There must be awareness.
That's it, of course, yes. And there is... John David says, Kat, I never heard you share your story of how the understanding unfolded for you. Would you be willing to share it with us? Yeah. Sure.
No questions, go ahead.
That's him. That was the one-on-one, my one-on-one with Bob. It was... I came across non-duality, like really plain, pure non-duality, after years of seeking and sitting with different Zen sanghas and in different monasteries with different gurus, and it still kind of didn't penetrate that the self or the I, the conceptual image, is a fiction. And then I went to India and I met my first guru, Sershi, who actually showed me that, and I saw it. but it was still the I that saw it. So it was so-called intellectual understanding. So I had the understanding on the level that I could teach it. I actually translated few books and organized the retreats which introduced non-duality in the way that Sergei designed the workshop. We had one in Australia and 5 or 6 or 7 in Poland and few in France and other places. But when I met Bob, on the first time I heard the spiel, I actually knew that, oh my gosh, that's the end of my search to, and end of my need to go to India and contemplate and write and dig into and think about what I understand about the no self, because he gives it in 30 minutes. The whole 2 or 3 days retreat he gives you in a 30-minute spiel, all of it included how it came about, included how it is mixed to the identification comes with the body or with the mind, because of what. So this was so clear, it was a revelation for me, but again the revelation was for me. So for a couple of years I was coming, the more pain and the more suffering, the more often Bob would see me in his meetings, which I was always kind of shy and hidden in a corner. 5 times I think he asked me if I came for the first time, because he didn't even notice me. I was so quiet and shy and timid and invisible. And the time came when the suffering became unbearable. It was so profound, and it was the heartbreak and the disappointment and the self-pity and self-hatred and everything piled up to the point where in December 2015, I actually saw Bob on my first one-on-one meeting, and I was in tears. I was completely devastated. I didn't want to leave. I was crazy. I was in my lowest point in life and completely not wanting anything else but to stop the suffering. And that's when Bob was asking me guiding questions, and I was answering the guiding questions. And one of the guiding questions was, what was I? What I consider myself to be? Because the story was the man that I left my country and my family and everyone who brought me to Australia. We were supposed to be seekers who will wake each other up, and he didn't see me. He saw the conceptual image of me, which was just so far out of what my conceptual image of me was that I couldn't stand it. Suffering was just too crazy. And so Bob asked me what was his conceptual image. I explained. He saw the ship's officer, the smart ass, someone who was lucky to have the good job and so on. And what was my conceptual image of me? My conceptual image of me, no, I'm not this, I'm not an officer, I'm not this, I'm emotional, I'm vulnerable, I'm sensitive, this is who I am. And funny enough, as I was answering it to Bob, in one hand I was putting a gesture of his image of me, and on the other hand I was putting a gesture of my image of me, and they somehow for a moment became equal. His ridiculous image, which I didn't like, my ridiculous image, which I didn't like either, but was kind of felt more familiar and more intimate and more kind of me, because there was feelings, vulnerability, sensitivity, all that human traits rather than the profession and the looks and the intellect. So, but at this point they were both obviously equal and both images. So as I realized that I'm not this, look, there's nothing here. I'm also not this, there's also nothing here. And in that realization, my eyes opened 3 times more, and the tears of devastation became tears of laughter. And for another couple of hours, we were just, I didn't even care how much tears it was. It was just such a relief and such a joy. And the third conceptual image, not his, not mine, not any other, has never been recreated, because there was no one to recreate it. So at this moment, the image collapsed. The full realization, it kind of like realizing how much has dropped off in that moment, only happened over time. Like it past few weeks has passed since it dawned on me, oh my God, I didn't do a minute of planning. I used to obsessively plan. Or it's quiet here, there's nobody talking there. There was always a commentary going on. But when something is missing, when something disappears, you don't necessarily notice it. Like sometimes I hear people here on the meeting notice that oh, you know, I realized that I'm not beating myself that much anymore. Beautiful. Oh, I realized that I'm not dwelling in the past and in the victim personality anymore. Magic. I'm not afraid of people. My social anxieties dropped away in a moment. I didn't realize I found myself on a big busy airport, and where I was especially here, treated quite badly a couple of times. There was no fear of interacting with people. Moreover, I could see the anxiety of everyone else, and I felt love and compassion towards them because I've been there. And now it wasn't available anymore, but it was remembered. So a lot of things dropped off instantaneously. A lot of things over time became clear. They may already, who cares, it's just the story how it happened. But as Bob said, he saw Nisargadatta and he believed he will never be caught in a mind again. And he walked out the door and he's been out in the mind back again. So it is not exactly that this is I being caught in the mind, but certain strong patterns, like I have really, really strong pattern of defending the ones that I love. So sometimes when I see that Bob is under threat, I turn to be a wild animal and I'm ready to just jump and bite the throats. But that's a pattern. I don't say it is me doing it. I just see this is the pattern in the body-mind. It's not mine. It belongs to the body-mind. I could say the body-mind is the vehicle through which the life express here. So it is mine. It's not denying the human part of the experience. There is a divine part of the experience of recognizing everything as nothing, but there is also a human part in which, yes, I do look after this body and this. And it is an adventure of learning, because I don't really know which pattern will surface tomorrow. It's not going to be mine, but I may discover a trait of behavior which I've never seen before. I have no idea. And it may not be pretty. It may be ugly. Who knows? I have no idea. But the natural tendency to see beauty when you don't suffer and you don't have that self-pity, to appreciate the miracle, to love more, it is inevitable, because before it was obscured by that self-concern and that discontentment all the time. When this one is out of the picture, it naturally shines forth. And we have some more words. If I get... Ouch. Yes, we're here. And Tanya is asking, how do you abide or rest as awareness? I have heard everything is resolved there. I am always aware. Without awareness, nothing would be experienced. That's it?
Yeah, if you're always there,
yes,
that's abiding in it, or
that's
resting
abiding.
in it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yes,
Recognises the background, the changeless background in which everything appears and disappears.
Yeah. Keep recognizing the immovable background and you are never away from it. And Amarnath says, am I unaware right now? That's it. Yeah, that's a guiding question.
If I am aware, you must be that awareness.
Yes.
That I am the person that's trying to be aware. I am the absolute awareness. That's what it is.
Jane, who is the you that wants to know? Is that the alleged you, the image or memory you have about yourself? Yeah, that was for self-answered question of Tanya. Good. Everything is perfectly resolved in the unborn Buddha mind or awareness or life itself. That's Jane. Yes. And Mukti, I is not an object. The de-objectification of oneself as me is the end of me. No one left to seek. As Bob says, the truth cannot withstand investigation. Beautiful. Tanya, there is just a thought about wanting to know. I am not just a thought. I am not a thought. I cannot be an image or memory. Without thought, image or memory, I am. Great pointers, Jane. Yeah, that's Tanya. Beautiful. Yeah, great pointers, Tanya. And Amarnath says, Kat, thank you for my story. Yes. Yeah, he says, your story beyond the words, tears becoming joy. Yes, that was a story, and it is just a story now, because yeah, it's a sweet story, because quite often it does not happen in a one kind of tipping point. It happens through the slow peeling of the illusions, and yeah, when it happens as a tipping point, it's kind of entertaining to something that you later on can talk about, but always remembering to acknowledge the fact that it happens differently to everyone. It's not, like Buddha at the gas pump is the best demonstration of, I don't know how many interviews they have, 400, 500 or 1,000, I don't know. And every single one had a different story of how the realization pulled through that veil of illusions. Whether it pulled through this pointer or that pointer or this moment or that moment, it's always uniquely different. So Bob's story is not going to be repeated ever again, and my story is not going to be repeated as it is ever again. So it's the entertainment, is telling a story is entertainment and nothing else. And Richard says, thank you for that magnificent and revelatory sharing, Kat. Thank you.
Amen.
And God says, thanks, Kat, I victimize myself too. Stop it. I know it's not up to you, but yeah, I wish it does stop for you. And Theodore, I get this self-image is a mental construct and is not real, yet as unreal as it may be, its persistence make it look real and wrap me up like a python. Any hint to keep this python of self-referencing far away? That's Theodore from Orlando.
Yeah, well, it persistently comes up because you've reinforced it day after day, week after week for years.
Yes.
When you see through it, it just doesn't drop off straight away. You've got to keep seeing through it again and again and again. Otherwise, the old habit will come up and the energy of belief will go straight into it. But when you keep investigating and see it's got no reality to it whatsoever, it's like the clouds thin out in the sky, there's more clarity there. Yeah. When the thoughts thin out of your head, there's more clarity there too. You can't. And after a while, they won't bother coming up at all.
Yeah, I like the metaphor, like a python. It's like a really tight suit, that sort of a self-image or that personality image. But when you look around and you see the animals, they have personalities too. The dogs, the cats, they all different. And it's not the personality that is a problem, it's the attachment to it, it's the ownership of it. If you see that the personality belongs to the body and you're not the body, even for a glimpse, because I remember, it's only 5 years, not even yet, but I remember how intimate it felt to be that emotional self, or whatever the image, because the image is also changing. I was the emotional self because I was in the middle of a drama and a breakdown. But I was this officer also when I was on the ship, and I was competent and professional, and I was a daughter and a wife and whoever else. I mean, that is a shapeshifter, that personality.
See how much that word belief comes into your life and believed in.
Yeah.
We've taken on so many beliefs. Question them. Belief's not the actual.
Yes. And how to keep that self-referencing away. Yeah, you have to be also careful with that desire, because it still is a desire. And I know that deep in the heart, this is the desire coming from the love for the truth, or even like in my case, just wanting to stop to suffer, because most of my spiritual search was love for the truth. I didn't suffer that much. So the suffering, I suffered immensely as a child and early teenager, because later on I kind of managed to find my way through the illusion. But the suffering, when the suffering came very, very strong, it was seemingly helpful. But the desire to keep the self-referencing away, it is kind of arguing with reality in a way, because if the self-referencing happens, let it happen. Just recognize that it's a dead mechanical habit pattern of narrating over what's already spontaneously happening.
It's resisting it, isn't it? Desire to push it away.
Yes.
Resistance is conflict.
And what is actually helpful, when that desire comes really strong, to go back to the source of the desire. If the source for the desire is the love for the truth, well, at least you're in love now, so it's okay. You're just in love. That's nice. And if the source of that desire is intense, immense suffering, that's an invitation. Go back to that suffering, make it stronger, recognize it again as a pattern, because that's the whole desire always have something behind it, where it comes from. And we are not sure. This is the gradual sort of a theory, that if you are gradually reducing the narrative, then maybe by force, by practice, by mantra, then maybe at some point it will subside. That kind of undermines the mightiness of the consciousness. That kind of makes an omnipresence, omnipotence, omniscience, reduces it to the object depending on the action of the personal self. That's not.
And gradual implies time.
That's it. Yes.
There's no time. It's always sudden, immediate.
And I know there is a lot of believing in that, 20,000 hours of meditating will reprogram the mind. It is not about having better mind. It is about recognizing what's beyond the mind. So it's not to discourage people from wanting to train the mind. Oh my gosh, learn foreign languages, learn difficult, complicated dances, or meditate, by all means. But training the mind is not exactly recognizing the source of everything.
That word belief came into it again, didn't it?
That's right, yes. And mind training is beautiful. I would love everyone to practice kindness, metta meditation, and all that can make life more serene and kind. Absolutely. But again, it does not go in line with recognizing what's beyond the mind, kind or unkind mind. And we have see, it will stop me. Oh, yep. Gosh, sorry for that. It just that we are. Yes, that is the Python. And now, John David, thank you for sharing, Kat. You are doing great work here in sharing your insights with all. Yeah, I hope if it resonates with one, that's already the job done. Thank you. And Tanya says, it is so clear now. And Jane, bring it back to who is it happening to? Yeah. Who wants things to be different, better, happier? That's always this. John David, no need to keep it away. Just being aware of it does the trick. As Bob says, thoughts are not stitched in your head. Yeah, that's about having that Python or the self-referencing narrative to keeping it away. Yeah, if you keep an eye on it, you already separated from it. You already the awareness which sees the pattern as an object. So now the object is not a problem. And Mukti says, over 3,000 Buddhas at the gas... Oh, 3,000 Buddhas at the gas pump. Wow, yeah, one could start dreaming in a revolution of consciousness again. Awakening coming like a mushrooms after the rain. Beautiful. Charlie, what else can I say except I love you both? Sounds boring, but feels beyond feeling. It doesn't. We love you too, Charlie.
Yes, Charlie.
God, I don't feel comfortable to be dependent on satsangs or teaching concepts. I don't know if it's my mind is playing a trick.
No, you've only got yourself.
Yeah.
It can be pointed to.
Mm-hmm.
Others can simply point to it. And it's, you that needs to recognise the pointers, or if you don't recognise them, be open to it. It'll take you where you've got to go anyway.
That's right. You don't really need to depend on anything, or books, or practices, or satsangs, or anything. If for time being it helps, then trust life. If you feel uncomfortable with that dependency, look into that discomfort, that uncomfortability, because other people feel gratitude in the same situation. It doesn't have to be that habitual reaction. But it is a good hint. Yes, you do not need to depend on absolutely anything, because who you really are is free already. It is just to be recognized, and whatever works.
As I say, I can't tell you anything. I can't teach you anything. Yeah. All I can do is point toward and ask you to look to where I'm pointing to and see for yourself. Because when you realise that there's no one can teach you or tell you anything, because we're all things. One thing can't tell another thing.
Yeah, Jane is answering to God that the nature, that's the nature of mind, to play tricks and to be dissatisfied. And yes, Amarnath, beautiful you answer your question that you are seeing your Python self-imagination that we see is not the seer. You're separate. Separateness is only appearance, not the reality. Already you know to be firm with this knowledge beyond the knower. Yeah. And Ben, arguing with reality. Haha, beautiful statement, Kat. What a fruitless pursuit. Yes, reality has already made its statement. I don't like it, I don't want it, I want something else. Who cares? Reality is already right. Dana, if there is no time, there is no now, no here, no perception, and no detachment. Yeah, we can say it conceptually that there is no now and no here, but what is the experience? If you push the words, we cancel it from dictionary. No here, no now, no time. But the experience of being is still there. The word being out, but the experience, that's what we rely on. And Dale Allison, take you to the point beyond the need for help from others. Yeah, and the swimming journey is just like in the fun park. You go on the roller coaster and you have a ride. It's inevitable that it will end, and the energy comes back to formless. So the enlightenment is, so-called enlightenment, is inevitable. If it is not recognized throughout that life, it is gonna come back, return to its source anyway. So nobody gonna be left suffering forever and ever because there is nobody. Yeah. But of course, if there is a calling from the heart to see through the dream, to see through the illusion, see the nature of reality right now, that's a beautiful calling. That's the life longing for itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bob was quoting the Cahill Gibran. Jane was also quoting it on one of the meetings, that your children are not your children. This is life longing for itself. And life is longing for itself not only as a human children, but as every single reflection, as every tree, every cloud, every thought, life longing for itself. It gets the reflection of itself because it can't know itself directly because it is itself.
And awareness, as I say, pattern, shapes and forms to express through and appear as expressions of itself.
So it can't know itself as an object because it is subject. Just like I can't see itself, it can see its reflection but not itself. The tongue can't taste itself, and the sword can cut itself, and a fire can't burn itself because it is itself. So the awareness can't never find itself, but it can reflect itself as consciousness, and as consciousness it projects the forms and objects and labels them and experience them. And yes, Amarnath says goodbye, thank you, and love all. And Rohan says nobody, never mind. Focusing on the experience suggests that there is an experiencer, and both there is and there isn't. Both there is and there isn't. That's mukti. Yes, it seems to be, but it isn't. Yeah, it's experiencer.
There's experiencing.
That's experiencing, and it's.
As soon as you say I experience, you formed a subject.
That's right.
I experience, this is the experience that's become the object.
Yeah.
But they're both the content of experiencing. Seeing, thinking, tasting, touching, smelling. That's the actual fact.
Yes. And Armanath, earnestness and patience are the two keys to success in self-realization. That's from Nisargadatta. You're yawning. And thank you so much. Words are inadequate to convey the gratitude. I look forward every week to this meeting only myself, sending so much love. That's Tanya. And beautiful meeting. Much love to you both and all. That's Jane.
Thank you, Jane.
Yeah,
thank you, Tanya.
Thank you, everyone.
So that's time's caught up.
I guess the time has caught up, and we have goodbye messages coming. So
yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Love to everybody.
Love to
Thank you for your input. Very good.
Yes, and insight.
Your own understanding, your own recognition. Beautiful.
Yes, Mukti says, yes, continuing to seek an experience is the trap. Yeah, seeking, experienced. Yes. Love you both. Love you, Rohan.
Yes, Rohan.
Yeah. And more thank you messages, a lot of them, and yes, thank you all. Thank you very much.
Enjoy the day.
Enjoy the day, or the night for
wherever it might be.
wherever, Saturday night, wherever you are, Sunday day here. And
enjoy.
Lots of love and lots of love.
Enjoy. Joyousness is
yes,
expressing.
It's a natural state.
Yeah.